Hello, and welcome to the Kia's Two Cents podcast, where I, Kia, give you my 2 cents on all things TV, film, books, and more. Today I'm going to answer the question, is streaming ruining television? Now, this has been a topic of conversation for probably the last 5 or 6 years, and I have not really given my 2 cents on the topic because honestly, my thoughts have been all over the place and they've changed. And that's probably due to the fact that it was too early to tell the effects of streaming until now. So now is the time for me to answer the question, do I think streaming is ruining television? So, do I think streaming is ruining television? Well, let's actually look at streaming services from all angles, starting with the good. What is good about streaming? For one, we have more places for television shows to live. Now, there will never be unlimited spaces, even with streaming, but we went from only broadcast TV with ABC, NBC, CBS, etc., to adding cable networks, to now adding streaming. And that's basically like a town going from one corner store to a shopping complex to a mega mall. You basically can shop your TV shows around to more places, which would hopefully lead to a better chance of it getting picked up and getting seen. Now, more places for TV shows to live could mean more TV shows being made, fingers crossed, we hope. The streaming services could essentially also drop a new show pretty much whenever they want. Like, they're not beholden to that fall, spring, summer premiere schedule like broadcast and cable TV is. But don't get me wrong, they do have a strategy when it comes to when they drop their shows, but they could essentially drop a new show every week for every month and every year. There's just more TV on now than there was like a decade ago or even 5 years ago, and I'm pretty confident in saying that there's probably studies out there that can give you all of the figures to prove that statement. Another good thing, streaming makes it that we can watch TV on our own time instead of having to plan our lives around a show. So back in the day, if a show aired at 8 p.m. on Mondays, then you had to watch it at 8 p.m. on Mondays or you missed it. And even with like the introduction of DVR and on demand, you had to pay for that. Cable was on demand and DVR was also extra. So if you paid for it, then you could watch it when it was up on there after you recorded it, but that's only if you actually pay for those extras. But now, if a show airs at 8 p.m. on Mondays and it's up on a streaming service the next day, then you can watch it at 8 p.m. on Mondays, or you can watch it any other day of the week when you're free. And the same goes for shows that are originally on streamers. You can just watch them whenever. And usually, not so much recently, but usually the shows stay up there forever. So you could discover a show, watch all the episodes, and end up being caught up in time for the next season. And another good is that streaming also makes these shows more accessible. Like, now you don't even need a literal television to watch TV shows anymore. And I am pretty confident in knowing that there are people who don't even have TVs and they watch everything. Like, you can watch from your computer, your tablet, or even your phone, and you can watch from anywhere as long as you have some sort of internet connection. But even if you don't have an internet connection and you know that ahead of time, you can download the episodes and then watch them at any time from wherever you are. I know to some people all of that sounds great, but that's not all. Let's move on to the bad. There are quite a few complaints that a lot of us viewers have when it comes to these streaming services. One is that shows tend to get canceled after 1 or 2 seasons, and that has led people to not even start watching these shows right away because no one wants to get invested in a show when they know it'll just get canceled less than a year later. We're not gonna see who these characters are and fall in love with them when they could potentially, and there's even more of a higher chance of them potentially vanishing and just being gone. And all we have is that 1 or 2 seasons. Like, it's literally not worth it to a lot of people. And so they'll just skip watching the show until they know that it is going to get picked up or renewed. And that a lot of times could be a long wait depending on who the person is. Now, the second complaint is significantly fewer episodes in these seasons. We went from having like 22 plus episode seasons to now having seasons where there's like 8 to 10 episodes. And I've even seen shows that have like 6 episodes in a season. And that can lead to less character development or none at all. A lot of things that people really enjoy are also eliminated, like holiday episodes, for example. We don't get to see people coming together for Thanksgiving or Christmas. We won't see Halloween or Valentine's Day. Also, bottle episodes, like the episodes where all of the characters are stuck in a cabin or in a room and they have to just deal with everything. And we even don't get musical episodes. And I know that a lot of people don't like those, but those types of episodes are important. These fun and kind of ridiculous things that happen in those types of episodes makes us fall in love with the characters even more. And none of that can happen now because there's no time for it. And the storyline also suffers because things can feel rushed, and storylines that could often be explored and sometimes want to be explored by the fans just won't be, because again, there's no time for it. And that really affects the viewer's connections to the characters, because all of these things that could be explored and that could be seen on screen that can help us connect to these characters and fall in love with these characters even more are just not shown. And so they're not as complex as they would be if there was time to show all of the different size and complexities to these characters. And another complaint is the wait time between the seasons. Now, I remember when seasons would premiere in like around September and October, and then we get the whole season, and the finale would be in May, early in the next year. Then a few months later, just having a summer hiatus, there would be a new season that would premiere in that September of the same year. And that cycle will just continue. Now, for the most part, all the episodes drop, and then you have to wait a year or more later for a new season. And that's just too long, especially if that hiatus is more than a year. Now, I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of the times I forget what happens in the previous seasons. And sometimes, depending on how long I've had to wait or my schedule, I either don't care enough to go back and rewatch the episodes, or I don't have the time to go back and rewatch the episodes. And this just leads to me dropping the show altogether. And that leads me to the next complaint, which is how the episodes are dropped. Most of the time, it's all at once, and that's the binge model. Now, I've also seen seasons get split in half, where you get the first half of the season in 1 month, and then you wait a month and the second half of the season premieres. And sometimes I'm seeing it happen more now, but it's still not as common, is the weekly drop. And no matter which one of those three you choose, whichever one you choose determines how long your show stays a topic of conversation, which is important because whether you're talking to people about the show in real life or on social media, this is another way that your show is technically getting promoted. And if you're talking about it, more people can hear about it, and that could lead them to watching the show and you getting more views on the show. So you can binge an 8-episode season in about a day, day and a half, especially if the shows are half-an-hour episodes, then it's going to take you probably less than a day. And after about a week, the conversation will tend to die down. Now, splitting the seasons into 2 parts can keep the conversation going, but it'll die down a week or so after the first part. Then it'll pick up again when that second part premieres, but then a week or so later it will die down. Now, weekly drops are the ones that will keep the conversation going the longest. But when you consider that there are less episodes in the season, it's still not getting talked about as much. So 8 episodes dropped weekly is about 2 months. And then you can add on a week or so, depending on how iconic the finale was and how much people are talking about it. So that's basically 2.5 months at minimum that your show is on and talked about, as opposed to it being talked about for most of the year if it had 20 or more episodes in the season and they dropped weekly. And I would go as far to say that The show could just be talked about year round without it stopping. Maybe it dies down a little bit during the hiatus months, but it's still being talked about. And, I literally experienced this because of how fandoms operate. I'm in fandoms. So as soon as filming starts and the actors are posting about it, or even as soon as the writing starts, people are going to start talking about it again. So if you see the writer's room posting on their Instagram a photo of them, that's going to up how much people are talking about it because they know a new season is coming. And, then they're going to talk about their theories on what will happen. And they're going to talk about what did happen and all of that stuff. And that's really how, again, you get more people to watch your show because of the people who are watching it and how they're talking about it. And essentially, with that, recommending it to people who haven't seen it yet. But, with the less episodes and the breaks in between episodes, that's all detrimental. All of this is detrimental to the show because the breaks in between being so long and people not watching initially, it can just get forgotten. And then, you don't have any views. So then it can lead to it getting canceled. And that whole cycle just continues. And you know what? It gets worse. Let's talk about the ugly because we're going to go behind the scenes now and talk about what that all means for the writers and the actors of these shows. Because however you feel about the entertainment industry, and hopefully it's good if you're listening to this podcast, this is a career. It's not just some thing that people do to make them famous and rich. And I'm really hoping that the strikes that happened taught us all that their pay isn't as high as one would like to think. And as far as I'm concerned, well, you're getting paid per episode. And if there's less episodes in the season, then you're not making as much money as you did when there were 20 or more. So when you really think about it, booking a TV show went from this goal because it could potentially be a long-term job, because it'll at least keep you employed for the year with the hopes of it getting renewed year after year. It went from that kind of job to, and if you're really on a really iconic show that a lot of people are watching, like your Scandals and Game of Thrones and things like that, that could essentially just set you up for life. It went from all of that to essentially gig work. You work your 8 episodes if you're in 8 episodes, and then you have to go and figure out how to find something else. And you're probably trying to find something else while you're working on this other show. So yeah, anyone who has done any type of gig work understands that. And because it's more like gig work, that is most likely the reason why you see actors venturing into other avenues like podcasting, especially, there are a lot of rewatch podcasts from shows like I saw there's a Seventh Heaven rewatch podcast. There's one for Living Single. Was even one for This Is Us and like One Tree Hill. They go into that avenue, and some others go really heavy into social media and content creation because, especially on TikTok, and get into the creator program, and of course they're going to have the amount of followers and views to immediately get in that because a lot of them we've seen in other things, and so they have this fan base built in already, so they know they're going to have the followers and the views to be able to make some money from the content that they post on there. Everyone has bills that they got to pay. People have families that they have to take care of, and they're going to do whatever they need to do in order to take care of them and themselves. And this is the reality of the field of work that they have decided to come into now that it is the norm for there to be less episodes, more time between seasons because of shows that are on streaming services. So, with all of that being said, it is now time for me to really answer the question, do I think streaming services are ruining television? And my answer is absolutely. I made a vow a long time ago that I would watch more broadcast TV shows, and I have, and I think it was the best decision I've ever made. I know that with those shows, the episode count has dropped, but I'm pretty sure that the lowest I've seen is 13 episodes. And if the show doc is an indicator, the episode count is starting to trend upward. So pretty much most of, if not all of the complaints have been taken care of just by me watching broadcast television again, and I am having a great time. So while I'll still watch shows on streamers and probably always will, the broadcast television model will always be better. And I hope that streamers get a clue and start heading in that direction in the future. I mean, some of them are dropping episodes weekly, and that's really nice to see. Unfortunately, a lot of the times we'll get 2 or 3 episodes dropped at the same time as a premiere, and then the subsequent weeks they're dropped weekly. And also they still have like 8 episodes, so it's still not that many weeks, and it's almost like half the season dropped in the premiere. But I'm hoping that as more shows hopefully start dropping weekly on streaming services, that they'll also see that maybe they should make more episodes in the season, stop trying to have episodes that are an hour and a half long and then the season is only 6 to 8 episodes, but go to more than 10 and drop them weekly and see how well and how well that works for y'all. So yeah, that is where my opinion lies and my 2 cents lies on streaming services and what they are doing to the state of television. And my hope, again, is that they start trending in the right direction. Or, everyone could just go back to broadcast television. But, that's a theory for another time. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Kia's 2 Cents podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure you share this with people who you think will also enjoy it. Follow me here so you don't miss a single episode, and also follow me across all social media at Kia's 2 Cents. And if you didn't enjoy it, you can still share it with someone who you think would. All right, until next time, have a good one.